Most folks think life slows down after retirement, especially after losing a loved one. But for Eleanor, a retired librarian, life was about to get a whole lot more coded. Hey, Soul Stories fam. We've got a sweet and swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in. Tonight, the Crystal Hall Hotel glowed like a giant crystal in the heart of the city. Light from the towering crystal chandeliers reflected off the polished wooden floors, shimmering on the elegant evening gowns and immaculate tuxedos. The air was filled with the scent of luxurious perfume, the soft linking of crystal glasses, and the smooth melody of jazz, creating an atmosphere both lavish and unhurried. Mia Carter entered with Emma Parker, trying to keep her balance in a pair of black heels she hadn't worn in ages. Her vintage emerald blue dress fit just right, making her stand out more than she liked. But compared to Emma's confidence, she still felt out of place. If it weren't for Emma's insistence, claiming it was a great chance to expand her network and maybe find new customers for the cafe, Mia would be at morning bloom right now, pouring cappuccinos for regulars and listening to Caleb recount his latest clumsy mishap. Emma was quickly swept away by a group of familiar guests, leaving Mia standing alone near the bar. She picked a glass of red wine, sipping slowly and discreetly, snagging a piece of cake, hoping no one would notice. But at that very moment, from the stage, a Dream King noticed her. The MC had just introduced him as the event's main sponsor and was delivering a short speech when his gaze landed on a young woman leaning slightly, carefully using her fork to lift a piece of cake as if it were the most critical task of the evening. He recognized her instantly as Mia Carter, the woman he'd met twice before. Once at morning bloom when he sat at a table by the window and watched her skillfully handle a demanding customer with a smile and a free pastry, turning irritation into laughter. The second time was at the farmer's market where she wore a floral dress, selecting coffee beans while coaxing him into trying an unremarkable baked good from the organizers. And he still ate it all to see her satisfied smile. Both encounters had left a lasting impression on him, smart, witty, and effortlessly captivating. As soon as his speech ended, Adrienne hadn't even left the stage when Evelyn, a well-known elder in his family, famous for her matchmaking, slipped her arm through his, loud enough for those nearby to hear. She insisted he meet a very suitable young lady just back from Paris and hinted at a dream wedding in December. Adrienne was used to such arrangements, but tonight, when his eyes swept across the room and landed on Mia, an idea struck him: escape the tedious matchmaking and see how she would react. He exchanged a few polite words with Evelyn, then, before she could stop him, descended the small steps into the ballroom and headed straight for Mia. The crowd instinctively parted to let him through. Mia looked up to see a tall man in a black suit walking toward her, instantly recognizing the face she had glimpsed before in the cafe and at the farmer's market. She hadn't yet decided whether to smile or slip away when he was already standing in front of her, bowing slightly, smiling, and speaking in a warm, deep voice, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Would you like to be my wife?" The wine glass in Mia's hand froze midair, her eyes widening. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "Marry me," Adrienne repeated, his tone calm as if they were discussing the weather. A ripple of murmur spread among the nearby guests. Across the room, Emma nearly dropped her phone but managed to start recording. Ben Torres, Adrienne's assistant and friend, stood with arms crossed, watching with an amused look as though witnessing the start of a bet. Blinking a few times, Mia tried to keep her voice steady. "We've never spoken before. Are you sure you're not mistaking me for someone else?" "No mistake," Adrienne leaned in and spoke softly. "We've met twice and tonight I'm stuck in a public matchmaking setup I don't want. When I saw you here, I knew I'd found my way out." Mia folded her arms, tilting her head slightly. "And you think I'd willingly be your shield?" He shrugged, lips curving faintly. "A smart, beautiful shield. Just nod for tonight and I'll explain later." "No," she said firmly without a second thought. Adrienne was momentarily surprised but not unsettled. He smiled faintly, his gaze unwavering. "Then I'll prove you wrong." With that, he gave a polite nod and walked away, leaving Mia standing in the middle of the ballroom under countless curious stares. Emma rushed over almost instantly, whispering breathlessly, "You just turned down a Dream King, CEO of King Capital, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't joking." Mia shook her head, ready to dismiss it, but the image of his eyes in that confident, deep voice lingered. Across the room, Ben leaned toward Adrienne and asked quietly, "You seriously plan to pursue her?" Adrienne took a sip of his drink, eyes still fixed on where Mia stood, and said softly, "1 month every day until she talks to me. Not out of politeness, but because she wants to." And so, just when Mia thought the matter had ended with her blunt refusal, a determined and entirely unexpected plan had quietly begun. The next morning, Morning Bloom opened at its usual 6:30. The rich aroma of freshly roasted coffee had already drifted out to the sidewalk, blending with the crisp chill of the early hour. Behind the counter, Mia adjusted the grinder while keeping an eye on the steadily growing line at the order station. The espresso machine hissed. Porcelain cups linked together, forming the familiar rhythm she'd grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. Caleb, the part-time employee who had been there just over a month, was struggling to steam milk for a latte, tall and lanky with hair perpetually tousled as if he had just rolled out of bed. He was always eager but so clumsy that Mia sometimes thought about sticking a label on him reading "caution prone to spills." She was just about to remind him to be more careful when the bell over the door jingled. Looking up, Mia froze. Adrian King stepped inside, his black suit perfectly pressed, white shirt crisp as if he just walked out of a luxury fashion ad. His presence drew a few discreet glances from nearby female customers, and even Caleb paused mid-motion, nearly overflowing the latte in his hand. "Good morning, Mia." Adrian's deep, warm voice was casual, as if they greeted each other every morning. Mia narrowed her eyes slightly, keeping her tone even. "Good morning, Mr. King." She was about to ask what he'd like to order, but before she could, Caleb, while turning to the side, managed to catch his arm on a tray carrying a steaming cappuccino. In an instant, a splash of frothy coffee landed squarely on the lapel of Adrian's suit jacket. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," Caleb blurted out, "Wadid." Reaching for napkins in a panic, Mia hurried out from behind the counter to intervene, but Adrian raised a hand stopping Caleb. He glanced down at the pale brown stain, then turned to Mia without a trace of irritation. "Your employee is adorable," he said lightly. Mia blinked, the comment catching her off guard. Caleb only looked more flustered, and a few customers nearby chuckled. She quickly handed Adrian a clean cloth and a business card for the dry cleaner on the corner. "I'll cover the cleaning bill for you." "No need." He dabbed at the stain, then met her gaze directly. "I'll have a cappuccino for here." Mia returned to the counter, steaming milk while wondering what game he was playing. She didn't believe for a second that Adrian showing up here the morning after the gala was a coincidence. Setting the cappuccino on the counter, she said, "Here you go." He nodded, picked it up, and chose the table in the corner by the window, the same spot he had sat in the first time he came to the cafe. Sitting upright, he opened his laptop almost immediately and within minutes was engrossed in the screen, occasionally sipping his drink as if this were truly his temporary office. Mia focused on the morning rush. Orders came in back to back, mingling with chatter and the warm scent of fresh walnut cinnamon waffles. Still, whenever she had a spare moment, her eyes drifted toward that corner. Adrian sat there all morning, unhurried, at times glancing up to watch customers come and go, as if studying the habits of the world through the AF's large front window. Emma arrived just before 10 o'clock when the crowd had thinned. She walked straight to the counter, wearing a knowing smile. "Do you realize the guy who's making every table outside sneak glances just walked in here this morning?" "No need to tell me," Mia replied curtly, pouring more coffee into the thermocarf. "He's been here since morning." Emma's eyes flicked toward the window seat, bright as spotlights. "Oh my god, he's actually following through on his prove you wrong promise." Mia pretended to be busy herself with the espresso machine, but the corner of her mouth twitched. Near noon, Adrian closed his laptop, stood, and walked to the counter. He set down the empty cup and before Mia could ask, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper along with a bill enough to more than double the price of the cappuccino. He slid them both toward her. Mia glanced down. On the paper in neat handwriting were two simple words. "Day 1." She looked up, but Adrian was already giving her a faint, unreadable smile before turning toward the door. The bell above it jingled as it closed behind him, leaving only the scent of coffee and a strange emptiness in that corner seat. Before she could tuck the note away, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Emma. "Get ready, girl. You're starring in a long-running drama now. Leading roles you and the CEO of King Capital." Mia shook her head, slipping the note into the drawer beneath the counter. She didn't know precisely what Adrian King was plotting, but one thing was sure. He wasn't the type to give up easily, and if this really were day 1, as he wrote, she'd better brace herself for the days to come. Mia had hoped Adrian showing up at the cafe yesterday was nothing more than a passing whim. She told herself, a man like him has 1,000 things to do. No way he has the time to sit around drinking cappuccino all morning every day. But that hope lasted less than 24 hours. The very next morning, Morning Bloom had only been open a short while when Mia's phone buzzed. A text from Emma, brief and cryptic. "Don't panic. Just look out the window." Frowning, Mia looked up and her heart dipped a beat. Across the street, Adrian King was strolling out of a flower shop. In his hand was a bouquet of white tulips, and even from this distance, she could make out the faint curve of a smile on his lips. But instead of heading straight for the cafe, he turned down a side street and disappeared from view. Probably just a coincidence, Mia reassured herself, going back to cleaning. Near noon, while she was behind the counter, the door chime rang. Adrian stepped inside. No bouquet this time, just a deep navy suit that made his broad shoulders and confident bearing stand out even more. "Good morning, Mia." Again, Mia blurted before she could stop herself. Adrian feigned surprise. "Is it against the law to have coffee here?" She exhaled sharply, made him an Americano without asking, and handed it over. He took it, claimed a table by the window, and opened his laptop. For the next hour, he didn't try to mess with her at all. Instead, he worked quietly. When he left, he set down a small slip of paper. "Day 2. That afternoon, Mia went to the farmer's market to stock up on coffee, beans, and pastries for the cafe. She had no idea that Ben Torres had spotted her on his way there and immediately called Adrian. "Remember the stall with the beer-shaped cookies? She's there right now. If you want to catch her, you've got 10 minutes. Adrian's reply was short. "Keep her there." Ben chuckled, slipped his phone away, and strolled to Mia's stall. "What a coincidence, Mia. I'm just picking up coffee for the office." She recognized him from the gala. Eyes narrowing warily. "You're Adrian's friend, right?" "Friend, colleague, and sometimes partner in crime." Ben winked. "But today, I'm just a customer." Before they could say more, a familiar male voice sounded behind her. "Looks like we've met again." Mia turned to see Adrian standing there, hands in his pockets, looking as though he had simply been passing by. "What are you doing here?" she asked, tilting her head, suspicion lessing her voice. "Buying coffee." He nodded toward the paper bag in her hand. "Looks like you know a better place to get it than I do." She ignored that. "I still have to pick up pastries, so excuse me." "I'll come along," Adrian said immediately, not bothering to ask if she minded. So Mia ended up walking through the market with him and Ben, discussing everything from new investment projects to how the cookies at this market weren't as good as last year's. Before they parted, Adrian added, "See you at Morning Bloom, Day 3. Day 3 came exactly as promised. Not only did Adrian show up, but he also happened to sit with Mrs. Lee, an elderly regular Mia adored. Mrs. Lee was famous for her matchmaking, and within 10 minutes, she turned to Mia, eyes alike. "Sweetheart, this young man is so polite. You should invite him to lunch sometime." "I'm swamped, Mrs. Lee." Mia replied quickly, shooting Adrian a look that clearly said, "Don't you dare encourage her." He only smiled, bid Mrs. Lee goodbye, and left a slip reading Day 3 on his way out. On Day 4, Mia decided to swap shifts with Caleb, giving him the morning so she could take the day off. She thought she was safe until she got a text from Caleb. "Boss, the CEO guy's here, same corner table. Left a Day 4 note already." Emma added her own message. "This is better than TV right now." That afternoon, Mia went out to buy baking supplies, and this time, Adrienne's coincidence was almost blatant. She had barely stepped into the baking supply store when she spotted him at the checkout holding a few bottles of vanilla syrup. He looked over smiling. "Guess I've got a knack for showing up where you shop." "Or you've got a stocking schedule," Mia replied, narrowing her eyes. "If I said it was pure coincidence, would you believe me?" "No." She brushed past him. Adrienne laughed, not bothering to explain. As she left the store, he called after her, "See you tomorrow, Day 5. Emma was the only one who seemed thoroughly entertained, retelling Adrienne's appearances as though narrating an ongoing reality show. "Don't you see? This is the classic slow and steady wins the race move. A little each day, not enough to overwhelm you, but enough to keep him on your mind. I call it the planned nuisance move." Mia shot back, but didn't deny that in her head the sequence Day 1, Day 2 was starting to line up neatly. On Day 5, Adrian arrived in a charcoal gray suit, carrying his laptop and a stack of documents. He took his usual corner seat, but this time he didn't work straight through. Every 15 minutes or so, he glanced toward the counter, catch Mia's eyes, and smile. Caleb whispered, "Boss, he's looking at you non-stop." Mia pretended not to hear, but her hand slowed just slightly as she poured milk. When he left, he placed a tip double the price of the cappuccino and a slip that read, Day 5, not a single extra word. Day 6, 7, 8 went on the same way, no matter if Mia switched shifts, went on supply runs, or tried to avoid him entirely. Adrian still appeared somewhere: at the cafe, at the market, at the baking supply store, even once at the post office when she was mailing a package to an out-of-town customer. Each time he was polite, never interfering with her work, leaving only a day slip with his tip. By the end of the week, Mia realized what unsettled her most wasn't Adrian's persistence. It was the faint flicker of anticipation she felt each time she started her shift. Wondering how he might appear that day, she tried to push the thought away, but it wasn't easy. That evening, after locking up, Mia opened the drawer beneath the counter. Inside, neatly stacked, were 8 small slips, each with the same tidy handwriting. Day 1 through Day 8, she sighed, but the corner of her mouth curved just slightly. "Let's see how long you can keep this up," she thought, turning off the counter lights and locking the door behind her, leaving the scent of coffee lingering in the air and an empty corner table by the window where Adrian King had almost become a fixture of the cafe. That night, Mia lay curled on the old sofa in her small apartment above Morning Bloom, hugging a pillow and flipping open her notebook. The slips reading Day 1 through Day 8 were still neatly stored in the drawer beneath the counter, fluttering through her mind like a string of little flags, each one marking a perfectly timed appearance from Adrian King. She decided tomorrow the chain of coincidences would end. It wouldn't be hard. All she had to do was avoid the places he could predict, such as the cafe, the farmer's market, and the baking supply shop, and keep changing shifts. The plan sounded so simple, it almost felt suspicious. The next morning, Mia texted Caleb, "You take the morning shift. I'll come down after lunch." Caleb replied with a row of sweaty face emojis, but agreed immediately. Mia felt secure enough to spend a few extra hours at home, brewing a pot of cold brew and throwing open the windows to let the sunlight in. At around 11 o'clock a.m., her phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. Status report 8:15. He arrived 9:30, still at the window table. 10:05 left a slip. I didn't look closely, but I'm pretty sure it said day 9. Pressed her hand to her forehead with a sigh. She couldn't shake the feeling she was being led along by someone who was very good at it. She slung her bag over her shoulder and headed down to the cafe. The place was still busy, the grinder humming away. Mrs. Lee sat at her usual third table from the door, beige knit hat tilted jauntily to the side. As soon as she spotted Mia, she lowered her voice. My dear, where have you been all morning? Leaving that handsome young man in the blue suit. Sitting alone? I have no idea who you're talking about, Mia said, ducking down to wipe the counter to avoid her gaze. Oh, come now, he was at the window table. Your table. I even got a picture. She pulled out her phone and held up a blurry photo that still clearly showed Adrian's silhouette by the window, sunlight sharp along the bridge of his nose. I posted it in the neighborhood group. Polite gentleman in love with happiness at morning bloom. 32 likes in 10 minutes. See, Mia's eyes widened. Mrs. Lee, please delete that. Oh, nonsense. People should know our cafe has its own heartthrob, Mrs. Lee. Mia began, but the door chime cut her off. Emma strode in, hair tied high, smile flashing. I hear your avoidance plan is going well. Perfect, Mia said dryly. He showed up earlier than opening time. Emma tilted her head, glancing around like a spy. What's your next move? Shift swaps and using the back door? The back door? The storeroom? I'm having Caleb move supplies through it. From now on, that's my entrance and exit. The plan went into effect that very afternoon. Mia slipped in through the back, peeked through the curtain to check the counter, and saw Caleb struggling with a demanding customer. She started to turn back, then a deep, calm male voice carried efficiently over the noise. Oat milk for table 5. Thank you. Mia looked out. Adrian wasn't at the corner table. He was by the sugar station, phone in one hand, stirring stick in the other. As if nothing were amiss. How is he here? Mia hissed at Emma, who had somehow slipped in through the back, too. Front door. Emma said matter-of-factly. Back door. He saw you, saw me. How? The rear-view mirror of his car parked across the street reflected the back door. Emma replied so seriously that Mia wanted to swat her. Later that afternoon, Ben Tor showed up carrying a stack of magazines for the cafe. He told Caleb, my boss says this place is perfect for reading. Caleb cheerfully stashed them on the shelf, then knocked over a box of sugar. Mia rushed over to catch it, but the lid popped off, scattering white grains across the counter like a tiny galaxy. Ben crouched to help, smiling. You know why people love this place? Because of the coffee. Because every mishap somehow becomes charming, he said, glancing briefly toward the door. Adrian was gone. Mia exhaled like surviving a minor skirmish where the opposing side had quietly withdrawn, leaving behind the day 9 flag in the drawer. On day 10, Mia tried to faint, posting a story on the cafe's page saying, opening 30 minutes late for machine maintenance. In reality, she opened on time for her early regulars, but kept one door closed, leaving only the back entrance. At 7:10, Caleb texted, he's here. Walk straight to the front door, followed by a trembling smile emoji. The front door is locked, Mia replied. Yeah, but he smiled at the camera and walked away. Mia peeked through the curtain. Adrian stood about 6 feet from the entrance, hands in his pockets, gazing up at the cafe sign as if reading a poem. He didn't knock, didn't text, just stood there for exactly a minute, then left. At 11, he returned, took the corner table, drank his cappuccino, worked for an hour, left day 10 and vanished. Not a word. Polite to the point of being infuriating. Day 11, Mia decided to hit the farmer's market an hour and a half earlier than usual. The streets were still damp from last night's rain, pavement reflecting silver-gray light. She wore a baseball cap and windbreaker, confident no one would recognize her. But the coffee bean vendor spotted her immediately. Here's my Harbor Bloom girl. Morning Bloom, Mia corrected with a crooked smile. The woman lowered her voice. That handsome young man repurchased your Sumatra beans this morning. What man? Tall guy in a blue suit, always at the window table. Mia took the bag of beans and happened to glance down the row of stalls just in time to catch sight of a tall figure at the far end, sampling pastries at another booth. Adrian, he didn't look her way, didn't approach, just drifted past as if by chance, disappearing into the crowd. Strangely, his not coming closer unsettled her more than if he had. She hefted her bag and headed back to the cafe earlier than planned. By noon, Mrs. Lee was back. She set a small pot of purple acers on the counter. For you, put it by the window. Someone likes to sit there. Mrs. Lee, all right, I won't say more, she chuckled, but I did notice you smiling when I said it. Mia placed the plan on the shelf, pretending not to hear. The door chimed. Adrian walked in a pale blue shirt today, tie tucked into his pocket. He paused at the counter, looked at the flowers, then at Mia. Pretty, he said. Thanks, Mia replied, determined not to ask anything else. The usual, he said. Cappuccino. He slid his card across. Let Caleb bring it up. Caleb, hands trembling, fumbled with the POS terminal, triggering a loud error beep. No worries, take your time, Adrian said calmly. Mia was quietly surprised by his patience. The wealthy people she'd met at galas rarely possessed that. Later, during a lull, Mia came out to wipe tables. At the corner table, she stopped. A folded slip of paper lay beside his empty cup written in quick ink. Day 11 P.S. His seat suits the airs. She glanced up instinctively, but he was gone. Emma poked her head in. See that glass-walled conference room across the street? Guess who's in a meeting there? Mia whipped around. The building opposite had a ground-floor meeting room. Blinds half drawn. Through the glass, a tall man stood, presenting to a handful of colleagues. Great, Mia muttered. He hasn't just moved into the cafe. He's relocated his office. The next day, Ben appeared again, this time carrying a small sign. Donate used books, get a discount on cappuccino. Many sir idea. Ben said, good for everyone. Mia crossed her arms. Are you trying to turn my cafe into your company's charity showroom? Ben smiled gently. Number boss thinks this is the perfect place to start something good. Your boss thinks a lot, Mia replied, but still took the sign. When she hung it up, she saw Adrian standing outside, eyes on the sign. Then lifting his gaze to meet hers. His look was calm, unpressured, as if silently saying, I'm here, that's all. She turned away, heart dipping, unsure if it was from irritation or something softer shifting quietly inside her. That night, after Caleb locked the front door, Mia took the trash out through the back. The alley was dim and cool, the hum of an air conditioner in the background. She set the bag in the bin and was about to turn back when a tall figure stood at the alley's end. She startled, hand tightening on the door handle. Sorry, Adrian's voice called, his hands raised in harmless surrender. I just came to give you this. He held up a small cardboard box. White tulips. I meant to bring them in this morning, but didn't want to interrupt. Mia hesitated. How did you know I'd be here? I didn't, he said. I just guessed your closing time. She opened the door halfway and took the flowers. Thanks, but don't do this again. The back entrance isn't for customers. I understand, Adrian nodded, stepping back. Good night, Mia. Good night, she replied, her voice softening without her noticing. Inside, she saw a small note taped to the box. Day 12, no more backdoor promises. In the days that followed, Mia's avoidance plan kept failing spectacularly. She swapped shifts and he rescheduled meetings. She went to the market early. He came late, still leaving. Day 13. She visited the baking supply store at noon, and he sent Ben ahead with magazines and the book swap idea. Mrs. Lee snapped a picture of the new sign and posted, our cafe has the cutest book exchange corner. In the comments, someone added a photo of Adrian behind the author's profile, calm and thoughtful. For the first time, Mia didn't ask Mrs. Lee to delete it. She looked at the photo and didn't find it as annoying as she used to claim. Late on the 14th night, Emma sprawled on Mia's sofa, dunking waffles into ice cream while scrolling on her phone. Admit it, Emma said. You don't hate him anymore? I don't hate him, Mia replied. I just don't believe him. Don't believe what? That someone like him actually has time for this kind of patience. Emma tossed a pillow at her. It's not a stunt, it's a strategy, and I bet you're about to lose. Mia laughed, waving her off. We'll see how many days he can last. Deal, Emma said, winking. And I bet tomorrow something will happen that'll make you have to ask him for help. No way, Mia said, brushing her off and standing up. My cafe is just fine. Saturday morning began more peacefully than usual. Sunlight streamed at an angle through Morning Bloom's glass windows, glinting off the spotless counter, while the scent of freshly baked waffles mingled with the aroma of roasted coffee filling the space. Mia was planning to reward herself with a low-stress morning until an odd hiss came from the kitchen. At first, it was just a faint clicking sound, but within a minute, a thin stream of water trickled from the wall, spreading quickly across the tiled floor. Caleb, Mia called urgently. Check the pipes. Caleb hurried over, crouched to inspect the leak, and within seconds shook his head in alarm. The main pipes cracked. Water's coming from the tank. If we don't shut it off now, the kitchen's going to flood. Mia cursed inwardly and rushed to turn off the main water valve. That meant the espresso machine and the entire kitchen would be out of commission. On a weekend morning, their busiest time, she was still trying to think of a solution when the door chime rang. Adrian King walked in, immaculate as always, though his eyes swept immediately to the back of the cafe and landed on the puddles spreading across the kitchen floor. Trouble? He asked, voice calm but eyes sharp, as if already piecing the situation together. Pipes cracked. We have to wait for a plumber and on a weekend. Mia let her shoulders drop. Then we can basically shut down for half the day. Adrian took out his phone, fingers moving quickly over the screen. I have a crew working on a project nearby. They'll be here in 15 minutes. That's not necessary. You've got things too. This is one of them. He cut in, sliding the phone back into his pocket. You're not planning to disappoint your regulars, are you? Mia bit her lip. It sounded like an order, but there was a layer of concern she couldn't quite reject. And true to his word, 15 minutes later, 3 men in matching work uniforms walked in and got straight to fixing the problem. While the crew worked, Adrian removed his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt. Need an extra set of hands at the counter? He asked casually. You work the coffee bar? Mia raised an eyebrow. I was a barista in college, he said as if telling her he'd once played basketball for his school team. Before she could refuse, Mrs. Lee stepped inside carrying a basket of lavender. Her eyes scanned the cafe, and when they landed on Adrian behind the counter, she exclaimed, "Oh, so you're working here today?" "Just temporarily, Mrs." Adrian replied with a smile, reaching for the milk jug. "Cafe mocha. Light on the sugar, right?" Mrs. Lee's eyes widened in delight. "That's right. You remember. Hard to forget." He set the mocha in front of her. The milk foam perfectly swirled, a light dusting of cocoa on top. She took a sip, then turned to Mia with a triumphant look. "My dear, this young man makes a mocha as good as any professional. You two have chemistry working together." Mia pretended to be busy herself, wiping the counter, dodging the older woman's meaningful glance. Near noon, the door opened again. A young woman with long brown hair and a simple white dress walked in, carrying a neatly wrapped lunchbox. Her eyes scanned the room and stopped instantly on Adrian. "Sophie." Mia recognized her from the strong resemblance. "Hi." Sophie smiled brightly, stepping up to the counter. "Brought lunch for my brother." But honestly, she lowered her voice, shooting Adrian a sidelong glance. "I wanted to meet you." Mia blinked. "Meet me? I have to approve my future sister-in-law," Sophie said lightly, though the mischievous sparkle in her eyes made the intent clear. "Sophie," Adrian warned, but she just shrugged, setting the lunch down at an empty table before seating herself comfortably. "Go ahead and work. I'll observe from a distance," Sophie added, her eyes shining as if she were watching a live romance film. Mia wasn't sure whether to laugh or escape to the kitchen. For the next half hour, Sophie alternated between chatting with Mrs. Lee and tossing Mia seemingly casual questions like, "Do you prefer the beach or the mountains? And if you had a completely free week, what would you do first?" However, her sly expression made it obvious they were disguised interview questions. The repair crew finished quickly checking the pipes one last time and drying the kitchen floor. Caleb grinned. "Boss, the espresso machine's back." Mia thanked the crew, then turned to Adrian. "I owe you one." He just smiled faintly. "Consider it payment for our half day of working together." As Adrian was about to leave, Sophie got up and moved to his side, leaning in to whisper just loud enough for Mia to catch. "I like her. Keep her." Adrian didn't reply, but the look he gave Mia then was longer, warmer than usual. The door closed behind them, leaving the scent of fresh coffee, Mrs. Lee softly humming an old song, and an unfamiliar tightness in Mia's chest. A feeling she didn't dare name but knew for sure today would be hard to forget. Still following the story. If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. After the half day of unexpected co-working the day before, Mia thought things would quiet down, but she had underestimated just how fast news traveled, especially when the sources were Mrs. Lee and Sophie King. On Monday morning, Mia had barely opened the cafe when she spotted Caleb hunched over his phone, chuckling to himself. The moment he saw her, he scrambled to put it away, but not fast enough. In that split second, Mia caught a glimpse of a photo of Adrian behind the counter, making a mocha for Mrs. Lee, the midday sunlight falling over his shoulder like a scene from a coffee commercial. The picture had been posted in the neighborhood group with the caption, "What other CEO would stand behind a counter making coffee for customers like this? Morning Bloom is something special." "Who posted that?" Mia narrowed her eyes. I think Mrs. Lee," Caleb mumbled. "It's already got nearly 100 likes overnight." Mia sighed. She was about to push it out of her mind when the door chime jingled and Emma walked in, her smile barely contained. "You've heard right. The CEO moonlighting at the coffee shop story is blowing up in the community group. People are even asking if you and he, No," Mia said flatly, pouring water into the car. "Oh, come on. I think you two match," Emma teased. "Tall, handsome, and willing to work hard." Mia didn't want to continue the topic, but that morning alone, at least 3 regulars made vague attempts to ask about Adrian. One pretended to compliment the cappuccino. "I hear that guy the other day made a great one." Another glanced at the corner window table and asked, "Not seeing him today?" By noon, as Mia was bending over the espresso machine, the door opened again. Adrian walked in as calm as if he had no idea there was a rumor swirling about him. He took his usual table, opened his laptop, and began working. Mia kept herself busy avoiding eye contact, but it didn't save her for long. Half an hour later, Ben Torres arrived. The moment he stepped in, he called out loudly, "Hello, future sister-in-law." Mia nearly dropped the glass in her hand. The whole cafe seemed to pause for a heartbeat before muffled laughter rose from Mrs. Lee's corner. Adrian looked up, sending Ben a look that was equal parts warning and resignation. "Ben," he drawled as if trying to swallow the rest of the sentence. "What?" "I'm just quoting Sophie." Ben shrugged. "She said she had to assess you and has already approved." Mia stood behind the counter, keeping her face carefully neutral. "I think Sophie needs a new hobby." "She's got one. Watching you too," Ben added, making Caleb cough into his hand to hide a laugh. Adrian got up and walked to the counter. "Sorry about my friend. He tends to say whatever comes to mind. I'm used to it." Mia replied evenly, though her pulse was faster than usual. When he returned to his table, my Cicely leaned over and whispered, "My dear, if you don't want people talking, you'll have to make it official." Or she winked, "Just let them have their fun." That afternoon with the cafe quiet, Emma sat at the counter sipping tea, scrolling her phone and grinning. "You should see this," she said. Mia took the phone. On the screen was a new post from Sophie. "Brought lunch for my brother, got to see my future sister-in-law." Two, with a candid photo of Mia taken from afar while she spoke to a customer. In the comments, there were heart emojis and minds like, "What a cute couple," and "We're rooting for them." "She's trying to bury me alive," Mia muttered. "No, she's trying to push you into her brother's arms." Emma replied matter-of-factly. Mia handed the phone back, determined not to read more. But when she closed the cafe that evening, she found a slip marked Day 16, neatly placed on the corner window table beside a carefully wrapped box of waffles. Stuck on top was a note reading, "Heard my future sister-in-law likes these." The signature wasn't Adrienne's, it was Sophie's. The next day Mia tried to stamp out the rumor. She told Caleb, "If anyone asks about Adrien, just say he's a regular customer." But the plan failed within hours when Caleb, chatting with a new customer, casually mentioned that the CEO of King Capital often sits at that corner table. The story spread instantly as if it were the biggest secret in town. Adrien showed up just before noon, this time with a thick stack of documents. He chose the table near the counter, sipping cappuccino as he answered emails. Now and then, his gaze would drift toward Mia, not in an obvious, flirtatious way but more like a steady reminder, "I'm here, and that rumor doesn't bother me." Before leaving, he set down his tip along with a slip. Day 17, "Don't worry about the rumors." Mia held the note, her chest tightening slightly. He hadn't defended himself or tried to deny anything. He had gently swept aside her unease. That evening, Emma dropped by again. The moment she saw Mia, she said, "This rumor's got more staying power than fake flowers. The only way to kill it is to not react at all." "You mean just let people talk?" Mia frowned. "Yep," or Emma paused, grinning mischievously. "Make it true." Mia tossed the dish towel at her friend, but couldn't quite hide the small smile tugging at her lips. Like it or not, the name Adrien King was starting to loop in her head more often than she was ready to admit. And in the corner of the cafe at that familiar window table, his image with a cappuccino had become part of the space, part of it in a way she wasn't sure she wanted to lose. All morning, gray clouds drifted lazily over the sky as if conspiring to unleash a heavy downpour. Behind the counter at Morning Bloom, Mia kept glancing out the glass windows. The rumors about the CEO of King Capital working at a coffee shop were still simmering in the neighborhood group and on social media. Still, at least today, no customer had asked her about them directly. Caleb, on the other hand, was delighted he'd been basking in compliments from people praising him for working at such a famous cafe. Just before noon, Adrien appeared as usual, wearing a white shirt under a beige trench coat, looking as though he'd stepped straight out of the overcast sky outside. He took his usual window seat, opened his laptop, and had a cappuccino by his side. He said nothing about the rumors, made no deliberate attempts to tease her, just occasionally glanced toward the counter while she worked. Strangely, that almost distracted her more. By 2:00, the rain began with a few drops, then quickly turned into a torrential downpour. The drumming on the awning blended with the hiss of the espresso machine. But through the window, the street outside blurred into streaks of gray. Mia realized a little too late that she'd forgotten her umbrella today. As usual, when it rained, the cafe emptied quickly. By 3:30, Caleb asked if he could head to the back to prep ingredients. Leaving Mia alone at the counter, Adrien closed his laptop and stood. She assumed he was going, but instead of heading straight for the door, he came over. "Are you off yet? I still have to do inventory." Mia replied, glancing up and trying to sound casual. "I'll wait," he said as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She meant to tell him not to bother, but partly because the rain was hammering down outside, and partly because, well, she wasn't sure why, she stayed silent. Close to 5:00, she switched off the counter lights and locked the door. The moment they stepped outside, a gust of cool, rain-scented air rushed over her. Mia hunched her shoulders, ready to make a run for it. When a large black umbrella opened in front of her, Adrien was beside her, holding it, angling it toward her so both could stay dry. "You don't need to," she protested, stepping back. "I live close by." "Your place is 2 blocks away," he said, his voice low but certain. "And this rain will soak you before you make it halfway." She hesitated. "You know where I live. I know this cafe and I know the street behind it is all apartments." "Just a deduction." The corner of his mouth twitched faintly, though his eyes stayed serious. "Come on." Without giving her another chance to refuse, Adrien started strolling, keeping the umbrella tilted toward her. Rain pattered against the fabric above them, a steady, muted rhythm like a heartbeat. Under the dark canopy, the space between them felt closer than Mia expected. She caught the faint trace of his cologne mingled with the lingering scent of coffee on his shirt, and her heart gave an odd little skip. They crossed an intersection, water splashing around their feet. Adrien kept to the outer edge of the sidewalk, letting the rain hit his shoulder more than hers. She noticed one side of his white shirt was already darkened with water. "You're getting soaked," she said quickly. "It's fine," he answered as if it were nothing. When they reached her apartment block, Mia gestured toward a narrow alley that led to the stairwell. "I'll turn here. Thanks for walking me." Adrian closed the umbrella and handed it to her. "Keep it. I'll get it back tomorrow. I have an umbrella." She started, then stopped, remembering she didn't have one today. "Then use this one," he said, placing the handle firmly in her hand. His gaze softened just slightly. "Don't get wet, Mia." She gripped it, the warmth from where his hand had been lingering against her skin. It took her a moment to find her voice. "Thanks." He gave a slight nod before turning back toward the rain-swept street. Mia stood still, watching his beige trench coat darkened with scattered patches of rain, her fingers tightening around the handle as if trying to hold on to the warmth she'd just been given. Upstairs in her apartment, she set the umbrella in the corner by the door. The scent of coffee and rain still lingered, and no matter how she tried to push it aside, the image of Adrian walking beside her under that black umbrella stayed sharp in her mind, so close she could still recall the sound of his footsteps blending with the rain. That day, the slip of paper marked Day 18 wasn't left on the window table as usual. Instead, it was tucked neatly into the pocket of her coat, folded small with an extra line beneath the words, "First rainy day. Won't let you get wet." That morning, Morning Bloom was unusually crowded. The sun was out after several straight days of rain. Mia chatted with regulars while making apunos, and Caleb bustled between tables. The cheerful hum carried on until the front door swung open, and a four-legged customer strolled in. A golden-coated dog with a blue collar trotted straight into the cafe, tongue lolling, tail wagging furiously. The whole room burst into laughter, several customers pulling out their phones to snap pictures, surprised but smiling. Mia crouched down to pat its head. "Hey there, buddy. Who let you in?" Before she could look for the owner, a quiet cough sounded behind her. Adrian had just stepped inside, and the instant his eyes landed on the dog, his expression tightened. He froze in the doorway, gaze wary, as if facing an unexpected board meeting. "You're allergic?" Mia asked, instantly catching on. "Not badly," he said, clearing his throat, "but enough to make my morning complicated." She arched her brow, lips curving slightly. "First time I've seen you flustered." He seemed ready to retort, but took a quick step back when the dog bounded toward him. Mia was already moving, coming around the counter, intercepting the dog and gently steering it to a far corner. "Caleb, get me some water and that dog biscuit a customer left the other day." Adrienne watched, faintly surprised by how quickly she handled it efficiently, calmly coaxing the dog into lying down quietly in under 2 minutes. "You can take the corner table over there furthest from here," she said, nodding toward the window seat, which unusually was empty today. Adrienne nodded, heading over, though his eyes stayed on her. Moments later, a girl of about 10 rushed in, her mother close behind. The moment she spotted the dog, the girl cried out, "Max, I've been looking everywhere for you." Mia handed over the leash with a smile. "He's very sweet, just a little curious." The girl thanked her profusely while the mother apologized for the trouble. Once they left, Mia returned to the counter where Adrienne was watching her with a look that mixed relief and something else. "What?" she asked as she set a cappuccino down in front of him. "Nothing," he said, taking a sip. "Just I'm used to seeing you in here, calm behind the counter, but I didn't expect you to handle something that sudden, especially with an animal. In a coffee shop, surprises are a daily thing," she said with a shrug and a smile. "You just got to witness one." Adrian set his cup down, his gaze softening. "Maybe I should learn to stay that calm." Mia laughed. "You admitting you have something to learn," he answered with the faintest smirk. "Only when the teacher's worth learning from." The line caught her off guard, her heart beat stumbling once before she masked it with a polite smile. When Adrian left at noon, Mia found the Day 22 slip tucked beneath his saucer with one extra line. "Today you win, but I'll make it up." On Saturday morning, Mia had just finished brewing the first batch of cold brew when her phone buzzed nonstop. Emma's message popped up. "There's a coffee expo at the convention center. Great beans, good prices. Go with Adrian." It was followed by a mischievous smile emoji. Mia frowned. "What does he have to do with this?" Emma replied instantly. "He's inviting you. Don't be stubborn. Think of it as work." Before Mia could type a comeback, Adrienne appeared at the cafe door, crisp in a white shirt, charcoal trousers, and a faint smile. "I heard you're looking for new bean suppliers. There are a few at today's expo. I know well, I'd like to introduce you," he said as calmly as if this had been on their calendar for weeks. Mia opened her mouth to make an excuse, but Emma was already standing behind the counter, shooting her a pointed look and announcing loudly, "Go on, I'll hold down the fort." Caleb chimed in, "Check out the samples, boss. Maybe you'll score a bargain." Resigned, Mia grabbed her bag and followed Adrienne to his car. When they arrived at the convention center, then Adrienne's friend was already waiting. He played tour guide for a few minutes, pointing out different booths before conveniently receiving an urgent phone call and excusing himself. Mia knew immediately it was a staged exit, but kept silent. The air inside was rich with the scent of freshly roasted coffee. underscored by the WOR of grinders and the hum of lively conversation. Adrian walked with easy confidence, greeting people and shaking hands firmly. He introduced Mia to a Colombian supplier, then to a master roaster from Italy. Each time, he found a way to praise her coffee palette, her skill in running her shop, drawing curiosity and warmth from everyone they met. At first, Mia kept her distance, listening and taking notes, but as the morning went on, she began to see that Adrian wasn't just the aloof CEO the media painted him to be. He asked technical questions about processing methods, discussed flavor profiles, compared roast ratios, and even shared how he'd worked as a barista during his student years in Melbourne. I used to make espresso for the same customer every morning, 4 years straight. They never changed their order, Adrian said with a small, nostalgic smile. They stopped at a booth offering Ethiopian coffee. The vendor invited them to sit and poured small cups. Adrian glanced at her, tilting his head slightly. You'll like this one, jasmine aroma, honey finish. Mia took a sip and it was exactly as he'd said. Surprised, she said, you guessed right. I pay attention, he replied. It was an unadorned statement, but it unsettled her more than she expected. Throughout the morning, Adrian never hurried her along or tried to take over. He waited patiently while she spent extra time talking with a small sales supplier, helped her negotiate prices, and even took down contact details to follow up later. By the time they left, Mia's hands were full with sample bags and business cards, her head buzzing with new ideas for Morning Bloom. During the drive back, she was quiet for a few minutes before glancing at him. I have to admit you were very helpful today, she said slowly. Adrian smiled faintly but didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the road. When they pulled up in front of Morning Bloom, he turned to her, his voice lower than usual. If you're starting to see me differently, I won't object. Mia stepped out, her heartbeat skipping once, but only gave him a half smile. We'll see. Adrian watched her walk inside, the corner of his mouth lifting just slightly. For him that was already progress. Tuesday Morning Bloom was as busy as ever. The rich scent of freshly roasted coffee mingled with the warm chatter of regular customers, creating the same cozy atmosphere as usual. Mia was bent over the counter checking the new coffee bean order on her laptop when Caleb came rushing from the bar, his face a mix of excitement and unease. Mia, I just heard Mr. Harris at the corner table say, apparently, Adrian's planning to buy this whole building to turn it into his new office. Caleb leaned in, lowering his voice as if revealing a state secret. Mia froze, the pen in her hand suspended midair. Where did you hear that? Mr. Harris said he heard it from a friend in real estate. Adrian's eyeing this neighborhood because it's prime location, Caleb explained, nodding as if to confirm it. And this building we're renting is on that list. The words hit Mia like a bucket of cold water. In her mind flashed every moment Adrian had stepped into the cafe. His calm smile, the patience with which he listened to her talk about coffee, the coffee exhibition just days ago, all of it suddenly took on a different meaning. Or at least that's what she thought. About an hour later, Adrian walked through the door, taking off his coat and offering a casual greeting. But Mia, still reeling from the rumor, didn't bother to hide her irritation. She crossed her arms, her voice turning cold. When exactly were you planning to tell me? Before or after turning this place into your office? Adrian paused, frowning. What are you talking about? Caleb heard from a customer that you want to buy this building. Mia shot back, eyes locked on him. So, all those times you came here, was it just to scout the place? Her voice trembled slightly. Part anger, part disappointment. Adrian exhaled slowly, his gaze darkening. Mia, I have never what? She cut in. You know, this cafe is my whole life. If you wanted to buy the building, the least you could do is be honest. Don't pretend to care about the coffee or about me. The last words were like a thin, sharp blade. Adrian went silent for a few seconds, his eyes deep and unreadable. If you'd rather believe what you hear than believe me, then maybe I was wrong. Without waiting for her reply, he turned and walked out. The little bell above the door jingled once, then was swallowed up by the hum of the espresso machine. Mia stood rooted to the spot, her heartbeat pounding, angry yet hollow. The next day, the familiar seat by the window remained empty. No Adrian, no laptop, no morning cappuccino, no neatly folded slip of paper marked day. Caleb glanced at the empty spot, then at Mia, but said nothing. The cafe still opened, customers still came and went, and the coffee still smelled just as good. But to Mia, something had shifted, as if Morning Bloom had lost a heartbeat she hadn't realized she'd grown used to. Thursday afternoon, Morning Bloom was quieter than usual. The soft autumn light spilled across the exposed brick walls, glinting off the little vases of flowers placed on each table. Mia was wiping down the counter when Mrs. Lee, the elderly regular who always ordered a low-foam latte, walked in. She smiled warmly, but there was something in her eyes as if she was carrying a piece of news she couldn't wait to share. Sweetheart, I just came from the community meeting this morning, Mrs. Lee began as Mia set her latte on the table. I ran into the landlord and he said, thanks to that young man, Adrian, this building wasn't taken by the bank. A few months ago, the landlord was in serious financial trouble. And just 2 weeks ago, Adrian stepped in to help renegotiate the debt. keeping the rent the same for all the small businesses here, including yours. Mia froze, her fingers tightening around the cloth in her hand. You mean Adrian? Mrs. Lee nodded. Yes. He told the landlord he didn't want anyone to know, but I think you should hear the truth. He's not buying the building, dear. Quite the opposite. He's protecting it. Her words rang in Mia's ears, dismantling the tangle of assumptions and anger she'd been carrying for the past few days. Before she could even begin to untangle her thoughts, the bell over the door chimed again. This time, it was Sophie, Adrian's younger sister, walking in holding a box of pastries. My brother asked me to bring these to you, she said, hesitating before adding softly, even though he hasn't been coming here lately. Mia raised her brows, but Sophie went on, her tone gentle. He's upset about being misunderstood, but he still told me to check if you were doing okay. Mia stared down at the pastry box, a weight settling in her chest. The door swung open once more, and Ben, her old friend, stepped in. After hearing the story from Sophie, he leaned against the counter, letting out a sigh. Mia, he might be stubborn sometimes, but he's not the kind of guy who'd get close to you for personal gain. He's been protecting you in ways you didn't even realize. Mia bit her lip, regret washing over her in a heavy wave. She remembered the look in Adrian's eyes during their argument. Not just anger, but hurt. She hadn't given him a chance to explain. Choosing instead to believe a vague rumor, she untied her apron and handed it to Caleb. Watch the cafe for me. I need to find someone. And in that moment, she knew exactly what she had to do. Find Adrian, apologize, and hope it wasn't too late to fix what she'd broken. That morning, Morning Bloom bustled as usual, but Mia sensed something was different. Ben and Caleb whispered conspiratorially at the corner of the counter, occasionally sneaking glances toward the door with faces that hinted they were waiting for some grand reveal. Mrs. Lee had arrived earlier than usual, claiming her favorite table by the window, the perfect vantage point, and placing her phone on the table. Camera aimed squarely at the entrance. The bell above the door chimed. And then Adrian walked in, not with his laptop and that focused business-like expression he usually wore, but carrying a bouquet so enormous it nearly obscured half his frame. Roses, paces, tulips, a riot of colors that made the whole cafe feel instantly brighter. Mia froze behind the counter, caught somewhere between surprise and disbelief, especially when she noticed the little setup by the window that Ben and Caleb had arranged. Fairy lights wound around a potted plant, a few candid photos of Adrian in the cafe over the past month, and a neatly propped wooden sign with hand-painted words, Day 30. I'm still here. Adrian stepped forward, placing the bouquet gently on the table, then looked directly into her eyes. His gaze no longer carried the challenge of that first proposal at Crystal Hall, nor the shadow of hurt from their misunderstanding days earlier. Now it was steady and warm, full of quiet resolve. Mia, he began, his voice low but clear. Today's the 30th day I've come here. I don't know if you're ready yet, but if you're not, I'll still be here every day until you tell me to stop. A laugh escaped her, soft, caught somewhere between amusement and a rush of emotion. Over the past month, he had been there, when she was swamped with customers, when she was exhausted making her 50th cup of coffee for the day, when she burned an entire batch of waffles by accident. Even on the day she was still angry, her glare telling him to leave, he had shown up again the next morning as if nothing had happened. She stepped out from behind the counter, standing directly in front of him, and gave a slight nod. Well, you won't need day 31. I'll go out with you. Applause erupted from the corner where Ben, Caleb, and Mrs. Lee were. Mrs. Lee was chuckling as she discreetly stopped recording, murmuring to herself, coffee and flowers. This is going online tonight. Adrian's lips curved into a smile as he reached out his hand. Mia placed hers in his, feeling the rest of the cafe fade into the background. And in the gentle light of that late-month morning, Morning Bloom wasn't just a coffee shop anymore. It had quietly, undeniably become the beginning of something else, something theirs. Late spring bathed Morning Bloom in warm golden light spilling through the expansive glass windows. The rich scent of freshly roasted coffee mingled with the sweet aroma of new waffle batter, a signature fragrance regulars could recognize the moment they stepped inside. But now, beyond the familiar whir of the grinder and the gentle clink of spoons against cups, another sound had joined the cafe's rhythm, Adrian's low, warm voice mingling with Mia's laughter behind the counter. Since they'd officially started dating, Adrian still dropped by the cafe every day. But on weekends, he no longer sat at the window table with his laptop. Instead, he rolled up the sleeves of his crisp shirt and stood beside Mia, learning how to make coffee for customers. Every time he finished a latte, he would tilt his head and ask, "Good enough, head barista?" Mia would laugh, reaching over to adjust the foam, almost if you hadn't dumped so much cocoa powder on it. Sophie and Emma still visited often. Sophie no longer pretended to bring her brother lunch. Now she came outright to check the progress of the relationship. Emma was a constant burst of energy, always teasing them, especially when she caught them holding each other's gaze longer than necessary. Caleb had improved a lot, though incidents still happened. Once he dropped an entire tin of cocoa powder into the ice cream tub. Adrian merely raised an eyebrow while Mia laughed as she cleaned up. Regulars found it so amusing that they started ordering the Caleb cocoa ice cream for fun. One quiet Saturday morning, Adrienne walked over to the window corner, picked up a small wooden sign and wrote in chalk, Day 60. Still not giving up. Mia spotted it, crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. Might have to write Day 100. Who knows? Adrienne smiled softly. If I have to write Day 10, I will. Laughter erupted from Mrs. Lee's table where Ben and a group of regulars sat, and right in that moment, Adrienne leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on Mia's lips. Not long, not dramatic, but enough to silence the cafe for a few seconds before it erupted in applause and playful whistles. Mia blushed furiously while Adrienne smiled as if he just won something worth more than any deal he'd ever closed. 1 year later, Crystal Hall glittered under the lights for its annual charity gala, but this time Mia wasn't standing alone in a quiet corner, and Adrienne wasn't dodging some matchmaking scheme. They walked in together, hand in hand, drawing glances of surprise and admiration. After the auction segment, the MC unexpectedly called Adrienne to the stage. He gripped Mia's hand, leading her up with him, under hundreds of spotlights. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a navy velvet box, and knelt on one knee. Inside was a diamond ring that sparkled like captured starlight. Mia Carter, his voice steady and sure. A year ago, I asked you a question and got the most direct no of my life. Today, I'm asking again and hoping the answer has changed. Mia laughed softly, eyes glistening, and nodded. Yes, I will. Cheers, applause, and camera flashes filled the hall. Adrienne rose, wrapping her in his arms, and kissed her as soft music swelled an unspoken vow for the rest of their lives. The wedding. A month later, they married in a garden overflowing with lavender and white roses right in the heart of summer. White ribbons fluttered in the warm breeze, long tables draped in lace, wine glasses catching the glow of the sunset. Friends, morning bloom regulars, and those who'd witnessed Day 1 were all there. Mia wore a delicate lace gown with a V-neckline, her hair in a low bun adorned with tiny flowers. Adrienne, in a navy suit, had a spring rake of lavender tucked into his breast pocket, the flower Mia loved most. When the officiant asked for vows, Adrienne squeezed her hand and said clearly, I chose you from the first day, and I will choose you every day for the rest of my life. Mia smiled, replying, and I'll choose you even when your lats are uneven. Laughter rippled through the guests before fading into silence for their long kiss, just as fireworks bloomed in the summer night sky. 1 year after the wedding, morning bloom remained the place where everything began. But now, beside the little window table stood a tiny wooden chair. In it sat an 8-month-old boy with soft brown hair and blue eyes exactly like Adrienne's. Playing with a small wooden coffee spoon, Mia scooped him up, kissing his cheek while Adrienne set a cappuccino in front of her. The baby giggled, reaching for his father's face, making Adrienne smile in that tender way only his family ever saw. Today, the wooden sign in the corner reads, Day 999, still not giving up. Mia picked up a piece of pink chalk and added beneath it, and never will. The bell above the door jingled as regulars came in, greeting the little family. Laughter, conversation, and the hum of the coffee grinder wove together into a warm melody as if happiness here had never once run